brain. Welcome into his frequency. Enter at your own risk. Come be at peace with me. Ask the Paul, where we rise and don't fall.
Welcome back to another episode of Baxter's Buzz. I am your host, Baxter E. Hall. Welcome to my brain. Welcome to my frequency. Enter at your own risk. I have amazing guest today. I believe this will be his third time on the podcast. I was just saying, this is someone that sort of everyone's trying to get time with, and I have the privilege of calling him my friend. He is a partner at Honigman with a specialty in employment law, and truly just a master problem solver. James Reid, welcome back to Baxter's Buzz.
Well, thank you. Third time's the charm. So I'm really excited about today's talk.
Yeah. I'm greedy, that's just, and I think when you have a good thing, you got to keep it going. So I don't ask too much of your time. We were just talking, and I'll talk about that in a moment. We had a conversation earlier in the year that I thought was really good, but it really led to another piece. So I think it is in January, right before you were making your transition to Honigman. I think you knew, you just hadn't let it out the bag yet, and we're really reflecting, and you just said, I would love to come back and talk about sort of my journey. I would love to just share my journey. I don't think that people maybe understand, that it hasn't, what you see isn't always what it's been, right? It's the back scene, it's the off-season work, it's the 10,000 hours, the work that you put in. And so I think you're really, in hindsight now, I know you're probably really reflecting, thinking about your next opportunity and thinking, man, I've come a long way. Am I close? Am I
Oh, you're spot on. And I love how you approach it from the side of the whole human, where I feel most of my interactions are what's the hottest legal update or the HR tip. So for you to see that internal evolution of the system, I'm excited to share more.
Yeah. No, we when we had our first sit down and kind of chatted offline, just learning, everybody has a story. And part of the reason that I do the podcast is because I'm just fascinated with people's stories. And everybody has these twists and turns and these forks in the road and these things, these speed bumps or these, mountains to climb. And I think that people will really get a kick out of some of the things that you're going to share today. A couple years ago, I wanted to start this series, really more so digging into this piece, and I wanted to call it Mentors and Muses, because I thought, there's so many people that's been instrumental in our lives, throughout our journeys, and we don't always take time to reflect. We kind of are on to the next thing. Successful people have a tendency to be like, okay, what's next? And so just giving folks an opportunity to kind of reflect and go, man, I've had some amazing people to assist me. I've done a lot of work, but I haven't done it alone. So when did you realize that you wanted to be an attorney, and like walk me through like what age you were in and like what that thought process was for you?
Sure. So at an early age, I was obsessed with chess. Fourth grade, I was studying the game hard, doing tournaments, and won the school tournament, which was like my first kind of problem solving recognition. And I realized that what I love about chess or love about games of strategy is you don't have to memorize terms and definitions and just memorize data. Instead, you can just think on your feet and solve problems. So when I went to Michigan State, I took political science pre-law to learn how to see both sides of the story and kind of find the middle, how to dance that political line where you have a lot of support, but also understand all various points of view. And so I also was pre-med just in case I wanted that route. And I did not like memorizing fungi and all these terms. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to tolerate all that for 10 years.
Yeah.
So I knew pretty much early on, lawyer was the route for me.
When you thought about being a lawyer, did you have like, you know, did you think about like Tom Cruise and, you know, or some of these like fictional characters in these movies? Like, did you see yourself like defending criminals or prosecuting criminals, or like what did you, because I know you had some, I know you were kind of dreaming when you realized it. I know you kind of
I
had
was dreaming. I think the inner me always wanted to be an actor and always have that chance to, compete on national TV and be in that trial and, just win and have that energy and that high. And so, yes, that stuck with me so much so that even when I went through the law firm internships, I said, I need to be a litigator. I want to be that pit bull litigator that is, the lead litigator in court.
yeah. And so take me from there to sort of where you are now, and like really being one of the premier experts in like employment law space. Like how did you land there from like pit bull to
Yeah,
really kind of, moderator of the pit bulls?
that's exactly right. So I was loving litigation, loving going to court, and I got my internship in 2004 and was an experienced litigator in 2006, 7, and 8. So 3 years of doing second chair trials and first chair unemployment hearings and other administrative hearings. I then noticed all the work dried up in 2008. And my firm laid off all of the interns, the 05 intern, 06, 07, 08 intern, and also an attorney that was older than me. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm this close to the chopping block. And I actually learned that I was also voted off the island as well because they wanted to keep attorneys based on seniority. But luckily, somebody high up vouched for me and overruled that decision and kept me. So my first lesson learned is you have to have someone willing to fight for you when you're not in the room on your team. But the second was you can't rely on other people to feed you your whole life and sleep well in a downturn. So I decided right then and there I needed to develop my own relationships and not just be a trial attorney. I have to actually have connections to the business and the pipeline to bring it in. And the only area of law that was active was the right sizer. So the terminator, right sizing companies, terminating, the old, the young, the men, the women, every race, and just not only terminating, but also being creative, trying to get employees that are rock stars and underpaid how to stay and see the upside in the future with executive employment agreements where if you get through this 5-year phase, I'll be able to pay you on the back end and incentivize, rock stars to stay as well. So I was problem solving. There's a lot of problems to solve with employment issues. And the biggest difference was in litigation, your real audience is the judge or the jury. And even if you win, your client is still mad at you because maybe they spent $100,000 on legal fees and they still lost even if they won. And so by switching to employment law, I was able to not just say, give me employment matters in litigation, let me come in on the front end, prevent the problem, kind of like almost felt like Ray Donovan, where you're just making the problems go away for a very small amount of money. And you're getting to interact with CEOs, CHROs, executives. So you're able to have a relationship with that target audience.
That's really interesting. What I heard a couple of things. First, you talked about how to help companies sort of right size their business because that's what was going on at that time. But you had a unique perspective because you were on that chopping block, right? So you probably brought a level of sympathy and empathy that maybe other attorneys maybe just didn't have because maybe they had never been in that space, right?
You're correct. Although on my strength finder, the empathy wasn't one of my strongest, but I do, because I could relate, I was very gentle and very focused on a smooth transition as opposed to being tough on anybody.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can see that. I can see, yeah, but yeah, that perspective, it would be tough to get. You could get it, but what you maybe don't have in empathy based on your strength finder, you had an experience though. So you already, you saw how it was impacting your, almost yourself, but then also people that you worked with and came up with. So it probably your tool is probably more sharp than you would maybe it would find on an assessment.
You're right. I could relate on a human level very closely to the situation.
Mm-hmm. But the other piece that you talked about, so when you're talking about litigation, you're saying there's an incident that sort of needs my assistance and I don't know the correct term, like a first chair.
That's right.
First chair would say, "Hey, Reid, we got something. Hey, I want you to work on this with me." And that person, so that person's waiting on crap to happen, which happens every day, but they may not always get the call. So they're waiting on something to happen for them to say, "Oh, we want to hire you to help me through this." And then you're waiting on that person to tap you on the shoulder and say, "Hey, James, we got something that we need to work on," right?
That's exactly how it works. And these litigation is where all of the dirt comes out. People are fighting. It's like a divorce mixed with business and personal. So it's very draining on the client that's involved.
Sure.
And not a fun process for them.
Sure. And so you are 2 levels away from eating. You're waiting for the lion to bring something back to the pride so you can get a little piece of that. And
right.
And it was probably fine until things dried up and you went, why am I not hunting myself, right? Why don't I know, um, why don't I understand, the trails and why can't I go out and kind of hunt for myself, right? And so you talked about relationships and how first you talked about sponsorship, right? You talked about someone being higher at the company firm to say, no, we need to keep this young man. He has something, which is huge. We'll get back to that. But the other piece is, okay, I need to maybe handle my business a little bit differently as far as how I go about securing business, and it started with relationships.
No, great observation. So you're right. It started out where, okay, I'm an associate attorney is your initial title. So the partners are supposed to feed me work. That's how it works. And I learned quickly that I can't stay in that role forever. I already need to play out the chess game and see that I need to be the originator of the work. So I'm not reliant too long on these partners to feed me.
Yeah. I imagine that there are some folks that don't mind that role though, right?
Over 80% of attorneys will get fed by a partner their entire life. So really, I would say less than 20% of attorneys develop any business.
because that's a unique skill set. Because it's not necessarily the business that you went into, right?
They don't teach you that in law school. There's no class on it. They don't really teach it at most law firms either, because you can build a great career being fed.
Yeah. So your that light bulb went off for you.
Yes.
Why did it go off for you? And then did you have the skills right away to sort of forge these relationships, or was it something that you had to sort of work on?
I did not have the skills right away. And the reason why I was part of the 20% was several reasons. One, I felt that I didn't have a partner relationship that would feed me for life. And part of that was a lot of the partners at the time were older than me by enough of a delta where I wasn't confident to be around my entire career.
Sure.
And then, second, as far as networking and bringing in business, I really didn't want to copy what the other successful attorneys did, because I have to make it my own. I don't want to just be in their shoes forever. I want to be in my own shoes.
Yeah.
So by joining HR chapters because of the downturn in the economy is where I was the only attorney at my firm really trying that avenue.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think about my the first president that at Cabinet, Steve. I remember in 2020, 2020, right? So, it's not '08, but some unique unique circumstances to say the least. And we were on a call with everyone, and he said, look around and see what everyone is doing. He said, look around, see what everyone is doing, and then don't do that. And that's what you did. You said, I I have a there's several routes to get to this business, and I'm gonna maybe take a route that no one in my firm has taken before. What led you to kind of stepping out and doing something different, and then like what was the response at the firm?
The response at the firm was, networking feels good, but I have no idea what I'm doing.
Mm.
And their theory was, for most business developers, you have to have a niche. And, if you want to do banking law, go to the banking conference. If you want to do hospital, go to the hospital conference. So they thought my concept of employment law was a horrible concept to originate business, because I'm not helping any of the companies make money and help them with their primary industry focus. I'm actually a drain and a cost, where I'm the attorney nobody wants and a specialist at nothing, was the general point of view.
Well, you're not the call that people want to make, but they're constantly making them.
Right. And I do explain the drug, sex, and money issues are really the same in any industry. The employment law issues don't change.
Drug, sex, and money. What do you mean?
What I mean by that is the employment issues of employees that are alcoholics or doing drugs, or that are having seniors sleeping with subordinates, or overtime issues, exempt, non-exempt, class actions, paying off the clock. Almost every employment issue is exactly this. It doesn't change if you're in a bank, a hospital, or a construction company. So therefore, I don't necessarily need to focus just on one industry.
Right, yeah. People, yeah, like you said, these things are happening across the board in all industries, right? And so,
Right.
as opposed to like finding a niche, you kind of put a nice umbrella around and said, no, I can help all of these folks with sort of with some common things that we know are going to happen, unfortunately, right?
That's right. So they were wrong. So it came full circle to where I was actually giving work to every attorney at the firm in just about every area of law. So because I had the relationship through the employment angle, I was now able to feed the real estate department, the tax department, the litigation, the insurance, and it went full circle.
Wow. But talk about the struggles though. Like I know it didn't happen overnight, right? You didn't.
I had massive struggles. I would say that when you meet somebody, you know, you can't ask them for business the first time you meet them. If you did, not only are the odds very low you're getting any work, but you're probably going to have a reputation of not wanting to be invited to future events and probably blowing chances of ever getting business from them in the future.
Yeah.
So instead, what I learned the hard way was rather than focus on trying to get business from the target audience, the members at events, you're much better off building relationships with the other trusted advisors and learning almost a reverse seminar. Don't tell the audience what they need. Ask them what keeps you up at night. What is your concern? And be more of a resource that I believe takes 5 touches before you have a chance at a deeper relationship, or at least to replace whatever relationship or supplement whatever relationship they may have. So I would say there's work I've done over 5 years ago that doesn't pay off until 5 or more years later.
Yeah. So being in my role, in the insurance role and like employee benefits specifically, I mean, you know, I service clients, but I'm my main job is to bring on new clients. It's business development, right? So I'm a consultant, but I'm also really hanging my hat on securing new business, right? And it all starts with the relationships that you create. Here is the $1 million question. You have to have enough success to hang around long enough so that 5 years later, when someone says, "Hey James, can you help me?" that you're still around. Like, how do you talked about the 5 touches, and we'll get back to that. But
Yep.
how do you
Here's how I did it.
Still around.
Here's how I did it. The firm wanted me to bill 2,000 hours a year. So that's 40 hours a week on their clients that I consider my own, but their origination. They were not necessarily asking me to get my own clients. They were fine me servicing 2,000 hours on theirs. I knew I wanted my own. So unpaid, I'm spending 1,000 hours a year developing relationships, attending events. But you're right, I didn't have the courage to bill less than 2,000 hours to their account, because then I would lose my job likely, or not be able to still be allowed to go to these other events. Over time, once you do about 10 years of it, you then become a master. So there's a lot of sports concepts. 10,000 hours is what you need to really master your trade. But along the way, I would get, let's say, 5% of my overall portfolio was client accounts. 5% is not enough to feed the family.
Right.
100% is what you need. So then a few years later, I'd be at 10%. A few years later, 20. A few years later, I was at 50. So then I went to my firm and said, "Hey, I'm 50% working on my clients, 50% working on your clients. Something's got to give. I can't grow. I'm already doing 3,000 plus hours a year." So what I did is I then got authority to hire somebody. And then when I hired somebody, I trained them to help the existing firm clients. so that I could focus more on growing my clients. And then I grew enough to where I could hire attorneys to help support me and my clients. And once I was at that level, then I knew I could do that full time and let the safety training wheels go and give all the existing corporate business to other attorneys, knowing that that was a hard transition because some of those 10-year relationships that I'm giving up, I probably would have been able to inherit someday. But rather than wait for inheritance, I thought I'd make my own destiny right away.
So, wow. So, and so in my business, I mean, it's incredibly competitive, and everyone doesn't make it. It's just that's just the facts, right? And I was saying recently, like you could like really like hone in, like lock in into an approach. You can try to like go, okay, I got the recipe. I got the secret sauce, right? And you're working it, working it, working it. And you at the end of the year, you realize, oh man, it was missing this one thing. You're like, your results don't show it. And you're like, I got it. But then you fire because you didn't produce, right? So it's like, talk about the trust that the organization has to have in you, that even though the results may not be where they need to be or where you'd like them to be, but that they kind of hung in there with you when it was a little thin and things didn't, you know, didn't
Perfect.
show bear fruit like right away.
So the prime example is I was able to get clients that would only let me draft their social media policy or their employee handbooks or just their employment agreement and nothing else. So my entire transaction is like $1,000 to $4,000 total for the whole year. And you don't feed a family having that for the whole year. So at the end of the year, I would say, hey, I brought on these 10 new clients. And they're like, yeah, but you only added 50 grand of income to the firm and you spent 1,000 hours, out there. So you're making $5 an hour ROI on your time. And that's how they viewed it. And once I was able to build that client base a little bit larger, they didn't realize that every year, 10 of those companies are going to have $100,000 lawsuit, or they're going to have a acquisition where they need to buy or sell a company, and there's going to be much larger work. And because of that relationship, because you're already on first base,
right
now you basically, it's yours to lose on getting the second, third, and home run type work as well.
You have to be responsible and show your competence with the little that you get, right?
Yep.
And that's the part that builds the confidence. I want to go back to the 5 touches and like the way, and I know that we share some views on this. You're more than just an attorney, right? You have other interests, you do other things, and a lot of people walk around with like this. They're basically just like a one-dimensional. They're walking around basically just looking like their business card. Like they don't have anything else to show, or anything else that they're willing to show. And that's, in my opinion, that's not really how you really cultivate like relationships, right? Like talk about kind of, especially, well, I mean, even in the insurance industry, I mean, it's very conservative too. Talk about sort of how you worked on like letting your personality show and like becoming a multi-dimensional person who happens to be this master problem solver, but not only like not just this box, like
Right.
like you're going to a museum and you're taking a picture with this like wax figure. Like no, like you're a real person with like talk about how did you consciously sort of eke out pieces of your personality? Did you come out swinging and just say, hey, here's who I am? Or how did you kind of balance that as you start to develop these relationships?
It started where I would do a speaking engagement. And at the end of the year, I realized I got zero business out of that one speaking engagement. So I was like, just because you touch the audience once a year doesn't mean they're going to throw all this work at you. So I realized I have to be more memorable than just showing up to in my speaking slot. So I then changed my approach to where I'll show up before my speaking slot and I'll stay after my speaking slot and have drinks where you get to know the personalities of people.
Yeah.
And so that's how it started. And then during that process, I realized that these events are HR's people time to have fun and connect, not just be educated. So I felt an obligation to give not only education, but an experience. So when they asked me to host the Michigan SHRM evening party, I put on a Richard Simmons costume and just started, wearing the funny wig and short shorts and rocking the mic, trying to be fun, not knowing where it would go. And I literally got 10 clients that day saying, you're an attorney and you're relatable and like a real human. And I think that how we want that whole human to come to work, we need that whole trusted advisor to come to work to build that trust, be vulnerable, be real, be memorable. So now when people see me, even if I haven't talked to them yet this year, they can kind of know what's going on in my life from LinkedIn, Facebook, or just remembering the experiences we had together off hours.
Yeah, that's really good.
Like you dressed up in your Mario or Luigi costume. Now I'll always remember you as standing out and fun.
Well, everyone is a whole person, and everyone doesn't feel comfortable kind of showing that side of them, but they definitely will appreciate someone else doing it, sometimes, right? And some people are like, oh, how could you? You're an attorney. Why would you? It's like, hey, everybody likes to let their hair down in one way or another, and we're more than the work that we do. And people kind of become a little more trustworthy when you kind of know more about them, in my opinion.
And if they know they're going to see you 5 times throughout the year, we can hold each other accountable. You're not going to, want to disappoint them and have to see them 5 times with your, tail between your legs.
Well, I've been working on this presentation, and it's not a unique thought, but it's like, the phrase or the thought of must be present to win, right? So there's power in proximity, and if you're not there, how many events have we been at? We you call that number and that ticket, and that person's not there. What do? They go to the next person. Right? Some events they'll go, oh, well, I ain't going to that for them, but typically they go, oh, you must be present to win. Who's next? And so you have to show up, but you can't just show up in body. You have to show up in presence, right? It may not be a Richard Simmons. It may not everyone may not throw a wig on and do the Richard Simmons thing, but you have to be memorable in some way. And ultimately, it's just showing more of your personality, right? And saying, I'd like to know more about that person, right?
It's that, and by even if you don't want to be Richard Simmons or Luigi, you can find us and be part of our kind of friends and relationships and be with us. And when we're not together, you'll speak highly of those people that you got to know, even if they're more introverts and more quiet. If they hang out with us and we get to know them, we can be their spokesperson. And I give a lot of referrals and connect a lot of people that probably wouldn't have had the courage to do it on their own. But because they show up and I got to know about them, find the best salespeople, the best relationship people, and be good to each other, and we can all help each other.
Yeah. there's going to be one person going back to correct him. I was Mario, not Luigi. So I just
There we
want to
go,
say yes,
Mario. I
yes,
couldn't
yes.
remember which one. Yeah.
I this is how I know getting old. A couple years ago when I was looking for the Mario costume, um, the one that they had at one of like the Halloween places, it was like a triple X or something like that. And I'm like, I called. They said they had it online. I said, let me call to make sure they only have two. I said, and it's probably not gonna fit. And then the young lady who she said, but there is a Luigi costume that's, and I went, this poor child doesn't even know who Mario and Luigi is. She don't even know, can't even pronounce Luigi because she
Right.
yeah, before her time. So anyway, um talk about as you were kind of working your way through, talk about these five touches. When did you identify that as like a magic number in your opinion, and like how you went to sort of accept that, because it can be very like, hey, we need new business now, we need this, we need, like, how did you kind of come to grips with, you know what, I can't ask anyone something until these, like, I have these five experiences and these moments with them.
Sure. So there were times where I got a small piece of business in less than five touches. But what I realized was we had no relationship. I was just
Mm,
a transaction. And when you have that relationship, on the next matter, they're going to want to bid you out to five vendors and find the lowest bidder. And you're just spending so much time to kind of build a relationship. And you're basically just the cheapest resource around. And so I learned that in order to actually know if they have kids and what their goals are career wise, if I didn't see them five times, they probably wouldn't tell me all of that on the first conversation. And it felt not authentic for me to ask it right away. It almost felt scripted if I ask them on the first date, what's your life journey and goals in life?
yeah. How did you come to that number though? Like, how did you like figure out, and then how do
Results.
you
How I came to that number was their competition. My competition is not seeing them five times. My competition probably invites them to their annual or semi-annual conference, probably takes them out to lunch once a year, and maybe sees them at one networking event. So being a competitive guy, I thought that I need to beat the competition. And if I see them at least five times, I probably have already a deeper relationship, more time in the saddle with them than my competition.
yeah. No, man, this is so good. Because I mean, there's so much of it that kind of parallels my point of view. And I feel like there's a new colleague of ours at Capnick, and we were just kind of talking shop, and we were talking about the podcast, and I was telling about my podcast, and I said, I'm not expecting everybody to like me, um, but at least they'll know more about me. At least I'll be more than like this profile picture online and this email address, right? And so um it's not the same as connecting and doing that lunch and that coffee or whatever, but it does give people a better idea of kind of who you are. And eventually they're gonna get to know me and either decide that they don't like me. So they can decide now, he's not my type of guy, or I'd like to learn more about. And so maybe that warms the waters when we do see each other in person and we do connect, and they feel like that they know me a little bit more than maybe my competitors, right? But ultimately, again, that's that multi-dimensional piece. And the dirty little secret is no one's gonna like you. 100% of people aren't gonna like you anyway. So you may as well be who you're gonna be, so that the people that kind of are on your same frequency can sort of see that sooner rather than later.
You're right. I think we both play the long game, and I'd rather people know who I really am and what they're really going to get now than have a one-off type arrangement, because I'd rather have deeper clients that I can keep with me through my journey.
There's another pressure, and maybe you haven't seen it this way. Man, his name's going to escape me. I'm not going to spend time trying to drum it up, but he talked about your presence and like podcasts, for example, or social media, for example. Even if you're not podcasting, but like when you show up in these places, you have to be the person that people see you as in social media, right? So they don't want to be let down. Like, do you consciously think about how you show up when you're out and about? Like knowing like I have sort of a bar that I've set that I need to like continue on.
100%. I think the stress is the more successful you get, each presentation has to be better than the last. This podcast has to be better than the other two. I have to have brand new jokes, brand new material. I don't want them to see me and say, "Oh yeah, I remember that story from a year ago." Like I got to always be on my game, coming up with new material.
Yeah. So you're conscious of, you're like, no, I need to show up and be, because there's gonna be somebody that's meeting you for the first time, and they're gonna say, "This is the guy you've been saying is so great. He didn't seem so great today, right?"
Right. You always got to be on your game 24/7.
When you think about sort of your journey, like what are some of the things that when you get in your reflective mode, what are some of the like toughest, like the challenges along the way, like that you think about, like, man, that I was really kind of down and out, or man, this was real, like I didn't know how I would kind of overcome this.
I have several. I would say one is I didn't understand 100% of people couldn't like me in the beginning. So I would take everything very personal, and I would also struggle with, sometimes there were false perceptions that weren't true that were impacting getting the business or the relationship. And how do I deal with those false perceptions, not even knowing where they're coming from or where they're originating? And also, when you do so many touches with so many different people, do you really have an advocate that is going to stand up for you when you're not there and help protect your brand and make you look good? And when you're spending all your time externally, am I neglecting the internal relationships at the organization by not really spending 5 touches a year with them, getting to know them at a deeper level? And am I not developing my team enough when I'm always go, 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 bringing in new business? And am I not doing a good enough job doing a deeper dive with my existing clients and growing that work and those relationships if I'm so focused on new clients? So you basically are able to see how complex everything is the more you advance in your career.
Give me a time now. Give me a moment where you were like, man, this is tough. Like, man, I did not expect this. Like, give me an instance that you can think of.
So in 2016, when half my time was existing clients that I was servicing for 12 years and half my time was new business, it was hard because I had to literally fire all of my 12-year relationships that were also great friends. Like they would send, cute outfits when I have a kid and things like that. Fire them all and just focus on brand new clients and new business that I almost have no relationship or only an inch deep relationship with. And I felt very vulnerable and naked.
But you knew it was
I knew it was the right choice long term, even though short term didn't feel right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we only have so many hours in the day, and we got to figure out how to best budget that, right?
That's right.
We talked about your the sponsor that you had that was a high level exec back in '08. You talked about who's going to say my name in these rooms when I'm not around, who's going to help protect my brand. That's huge. Um, anybody or any group of people that you want to like mention, or like as you reflect on who did protect my brand, who did say, you know, you got it wrong with James, or you need to give James a shot, or opening a door for you, or speaking your name in a room full of opportunities that you may not be in. Like, are there folks that you can think of?
I love how you're getting deep with it. In all honesty, um, I think what I did is I got less deep with a lot of people. And so because of not getting too deep, I'm unaware of who is saying great things and who has concerns. And when I try to find out, I think given the title and the elevation I have, people aren't really very direct. So I think that I honestly don't know all of the supporters and people that don't support. I'm still trying to navigate that. And I don't know if you're better off learning who they are or just realizing perceptions, your reality, regardless if true, and just acting even more professional and more above board to improve your brand over time. I think it takes about 3 years to correct a perception, good or bad. So if I'm known as the rock star, best employment lawyer around, that's going to stay for a few years, even if I am not the sharpest pencil in the box. And vice versa. If you have a bad moment, you could improve your game and be the smartest around, but no one's going to know it for a few years. So I'm playing the long-term game and just trying to step back a little bit. I think it's almost like an acting role. If you're known as having too much fun, then you're perceived as not as educational. And for too much educational, then you're perceived as dry and not the well-rounded person and not fun. So I think it's always a struggle to find the right balance.
Well, and you're letting your work speak for itself.
That's right.
Yeah. And again, there are going to be people for whatever reason that just don't. They're not going to be your type of people. They're never going to be fans of yours, and it's okay.
That's okay. And I'm now more team focused than I've ever been. So I think my biggest evolution is I now have a team of a dozen attorneys that are my rocks. And if for some reason your personality jives better with one of my teammates, I'm happy to help connect you and they can take a great job on your matters approach. So I'm no longer kind of hoarding every relationship and every piece of work. I'm now spending a lot of time. I'm humbled to be able to connect and pass along to someone else on my team.
Yeah. The man that's a friend to everyone is not a friend to himself, right?
That's right.
You can't please everyone. Well, I am a fan of yours, my friend, and I'm not gonna let anybody say anything bad about you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Now I'm learning. So Mr. Hall is my man to announce to the public as someone that if I'm not in the room, will speak highly.
That's right. That's right. This has been so good because there's so many parallels, and you know, we talk about it. We'll text and that because we'll see each other, but we'll be working. We'll be, we don't spend a lot of time kind of chatting at these events because we're meeting new people and kind of forging those new relationships. I'm like, I'll see James. I'll call James later, or I'll text James, right? But it's always a privilege to learn more about you. I just am a fan of your approach, your work ethic, and I'm always stealing tips and tricks from you, whether you know it or not. So just thank you for being a friend and a part-time mentor of mine.
No, and thank you for trying to be the human and getting to know me at a deeper level, and not just a legal resource. That is humbling to be asked to share an opinion beyond just your working skill set.
Before we wrap, is there anything that you would tell anyone that's kind of trying to figure things out, regardless of their industry, and maybe facing some adversity of their own?
I think I would summarize the key takeaways from today is don't follow what you and I are doing, go your own route, and be memorable in whatever way it is that you can. And I think if you stand up for other people that are great people when they're not there, you'll be forever remembered and desired to be on the executive intimate group. And it is a small world. And I think you got to build your brand for 20 years and not just focus on your quota for the year.
Wow. Mic drop. He is a partner at Honigman with a specialty in employment law, master problem solver, connector, and occasionally you may catch him with the Richard Simmons wig on. Although it's been a while now, right?
Well, this year is if it isn't neon, it shouldn't be on. So you're gonna see me walking the catwalk with some neon this year.
Yes. Sounds like you guys have up your sleeve already. James Reid, thank you so much for coming back to Baxter's Buzz. This has been my favorite one of the three so far. Thanks for sharing your experiences and letting folks know that it's not all glitz and glamour. Like there's really, real work that's put into it, and you're not done. You're, still, working extremely hard and still really conscious of like the work that you're doing, right?
That's right. You can't just focus on the ROI this year. You got to be willing to dedicate an extra 1,000 hours on top of everything else if you want to continue growing in life.
That's right. And leaders, if you see something in someone, sometimes you gotta grade people with the curve. Let them help them. Let them carry that vision out, because you don't want to miss out on the next James Reid. For everyone that's listening or watching to this, thank you. I just want everyone to know that you are all capable. You just need to find your own frequency. So on behalf of James, I am Baxter E. Until next time, peace.
Welcome into his brain, welcome into his frequency. Enter at your own risk, come be at peace with me.
Thank you so much for watching this video. If you haven't already, please hit the like button, please subscribe, share, and also hit that notification button as well. Thank you so much.
Financial literacy to authentic black history, this real rap.